Good question. Very important question. Frankie Russo over here, 77 WABC pre-show. We're on about an hour. We're running a little late, but it's okay. We're going to do good. Okay, so remember, go to facebook.com/Frankie Russo Show. Click on the America's Team icon, and let's help America's team help the men and women of the United States Armed Forces. I'm going to get it right, even though it's 12 o'clock in the morning. We're going to help the men and women of the United States Armed Forces fight post-traumatic stress disorder. You got to go there, click on the buttons. Let's get this thing going. I'm not stopping. I haven't raised that much money right now, but I'm not stopping till I get it. We're doing this. You got to click on the America's Team icon and follow it. Got it? Good. Okay, quickly. Fraudulent Sector Service Card. Joe Aparo, Sheriff Joe did the investigation. Obama's got a fraudulent selective service registration card. It was never mailed, according to Sheriff Joe. He's a memorandum of understanding with the Clinton Foundation, and then we got this whole thing with the Iranian Global Terror Network, and we got the Iranian surrogates all connected. This is the model that this is like an oral term paper, and each week we add things to this. It's pretty interesting. I believe it's statistically significant. And then we started off, I was talking to Dan Murphy here, my producer, and talking about this Muslim mapping. Understand, Ted Cruz comes here. I'm an American. I'm a natural-born American citizen. My both parents are born here in America. They don't have to be, but they're United States citizens at the time of my birth. So I'm a natural-born American citizen. I love my country. I love New York. I'm not like, I'm not down with these politicians, de Blasio, the governor, Viverito, the city council speaker. I'm not down with these people. But I love New York. I love the New Yorkers. I love the diversity in New York. I love the energy in New York. I love everything about New York. And Donald Trump raised an interesting point about how this entire, we're like all these people, tens of millions, right? Tens of millions of people, 8.5 millions of people in we're not as big as California. So we're like all jammed in with all these different people, all these different languages, and we get along. And guess what? We had a big crisis in 2001 and we got it done. So there we are. I love New York. I love New York. I don't agree with its politics, but I love it. And that's my take on that. And to get it straight, we got this Canadian by way of Texas pawning himself off as American because he memorized the Constitution. He memorizes the Constitution, so that makes him an American. Now, what he was referring to, because what he does is, Cruz pawns himself off. New York should adopt that program that Ray Kelly had. Well, thank you very much. It's like he said, we should put together some legislation to make Muslim Brotherhood a foreign terrorist organization, to designate them a foreign terrorist organization. Meanwhile, Michelle Bachmann did it 2 years ago, House Bill H.R. 5194 in the House. But that's Cruz, the ruse. But anyway, NYPD's Muslim mapping saved lives. This is a great thing. Donald Trump talked about this. Donald Trump talked about surveilling the mass. Way before Cruz brought it up now, because Cruz is a political opportunist. Federal agents knew that a would-be terrorist had likely arrived. This is the scenario that happened, and how powerful this Muslim mapping is. This was our response to September 11, 2001. Federal agents knew that a would-be terrorist, in the New York Post I'm reading, federal agents knew that a would-be terrorist had likely arrived in New York City from Florida over Thanksgiving weekend. However, they didn't know where in New York City he was. A worrisome prospect considering Alman Quasi was gathering information on the best places to detonate bombs in Manhattan. He came from Florida into New York City, casing New York City. Casing New York City. Bombs, Times Square, and Wall Street among them. Now, I talked about this well before that freaking fraud Cruz talked about it during this past week. I've been talking about this on my show. I even got the document, The Radicalization in the West, put out by Ray Kelly, the NYPD. They did an extensive investigation on it. The research is extensive on the radicalization in the West. NYPD's division, it turned out, knew exactly where to look because it already knew places in a metro area that might be inclined to open their doors for the night to a cash-strapped transient and armored with Al-Qaeda. It then sent an NYPD undercover officer into one of those locations and confirmed Quasi's presence there. That allowed federal authorities to initiate surveillance and arrest Quasi on terrorism charges as he stepped off a bus in Fort Lauderdale. That's how good this Muslim mapping is. This was the program. And then they got the ACLU with 3 Muslims got together, racial profiling, religious profiling, and then they had a scabash with De Blasio, the Sandinista from Nicaragua, and that Melissa Mark Viverito, that she supports the Cuban terrorists that wanted to whack the Americans. This is the program. And then as reported, this article was written a few years ago, but just to show you the relevance of it, the Boston Marathon bombers, according to, it was reported around this time, the Boston Marathon bombers made it to New York. Similarly, had the Boston Marathon bombers made it to New York with their explosive devices, the NYPD would have been in a good position to know where to look for them because of some mapping it had done in Brighton Beach and elsewhere. This is crazy. This is the way we do this. This is crazy stuff. We're not going into people's houses like Cruz wants to do. They're doing their thing. These assessments of where a terrorist might land in order to find as cheap place to stay, a job off the books, an internet cafe, or even a restaurant for comfort food were done by a small NYPD unit called the Demographics Unit, later the Zone Assessment Unit, which was dismantled because of this whole thing. This Demographics Unit never had more than 14 police officers assigned to it in a department of 35,000 officers. None were undercover officers, although some undercover officers were later employed in areas that detectives in the unit had mapped. The officers assigned to the unit did not infiltrate terrorist groups or spy on them. They provided investigators who did with roadmaps as to where terrorists might gravitate in the metropolitan area in advance of an attack or to hide after one. This is great stuff. Breathless reporting has asserted that police admitted that the unit hadn't developed terrorist leads. That's like, okay, fine. But the unit complemented in a very specific way the work of approximately 1,300 NYPD officers assigned to counterterrorism duties every day. Its critics inflated the unit's role and wrongly put, but hopefully the terrorists, well, they're saying, well, hopefully it's more easy to elude the. It's not that, hopefully that they don't believe it's easy because of this unit. They're hoping its critics inflated the unit's role and wrongly painted it as having engaged in unconstitutional spying. To be clear about it, hopefully terrorists who want to return to unfortunately to kill more New Yorkers don't believe it's more easy for them to evade NYPD. New York law enforcement, or interpret this as a prelude to further dismantling of the NYPD counterterrorism. So what they're saying is they're hoping that, because they heard that they dismantled this program, so that's going to encourage them to come back to New York City. That's what they're hoping that this reporting doesn't do, basically. That would be potentially tragic, considering terrorists' relentless post-9/11 efforts to again target New York. The conviction last year on terror-related charges of Abdel Hamed demonstrated the importance of early identification intervention by the NYPD Intelligence Division and the FBI of individuals who pose a real danger. NYPD undercover encountered Abdel Hamed in 2008 and learned of his plans to travel to Pakistan for terrorist training. You believe this? The NYPD alerted federal authorities of his impending departure, which resulted in Pakistani authorities denying him his entry. Abdel Hamed's activities brought him into contact with New York-based radical group Revolution Muslim, Jesse Curtis Morton, who was convicted in 2012 of conspiracy to solicit murder and other terrorist charges. A few months later, Abdel Hamed was denied entry into Pakistan. 3 other New Yorkers made their way to Pakistan, also in hopes of joining the Taliban. Instead, Al-Qaeda saw the value of their U.S. passports and gave them weapons, training, and sent them home to carry out an attack in New York City. Crazy stuff. Zani, Addis, and these names are crazy. Sarin was subsequently convicted of planning suicide bombings of 3 busy New York City subways. Carlos Almonte and Mohammed Alessa pleaded guilty to terrorism charges. They were New Jersey residents in 2011 for their attempts to join Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda's affiliate in Somalia. At the request of federal authorities and New Jersey law enforcement, NYPD introduced one of its undercover officers into the investigation. There were other plots since 9/11 to bomb the retaining wall at the World Trade Center, the PATH train, to take down the Brooklyn Bridge, to attack synagogues in Manhattan and Riverdale, to bomb fuel storage tanks in JFK. The list goes on. The plots have one thing in common: New York City as a target. Any assessment of the NYPD counterterrorism program should keep that in mind. Reassessment. I mean, this is great. This Muslim mapping is crazy stuff. So I saw that. Then, like I said, the courts ruled in that favor. Now, there's something with this NYPD thing. There was 72. There was a. Well, I'll go over here. We got to get moving. I spent a lot of time on that one article. Too much?
It's too long. You
All
could
right.
condense it if you can.
Yeah.
It's too long. No, it's all important information.
It was good, right?
Yeah, but it's
Too long.
yeah.
Shoot.
Do like 2.5 paragraphs of that. You know?
Yeah, I think so.
You know.
The first paragraphs were good.
Yeah.
Okay. I got this one. I got this one. All right. And I'll get this one, so we'll have some pickings. Okay, I'm going to start here. Quick. The Department of Homeland Security secretly scrubbed 1,000 names from U.S. terror watch lists. Why is that? And it came out that 72 employees of the Department of Homeland Security were on terror watch lists. It's crazy stuff. Just keep that in mind. ISIS, Iran's instrument for regional hegemony. It's pretty statistically significant documentation that ISIS could be a creation of Iran, maybe a stretch, but at least Iran is definitely approved and or they got their hand in it, where they have some sort of control over it, because they're not going to allow this Sunni militia to just patrol the region with power.
Run amok.
They want to be the El Jefe in the region. So after the Iranian-Iraq war, if you're not convinced, then there's something wrong. This is an interesting article. Obama denied a record 77% of the FOA's requests. We have a transparent government? Really? He set a record. Washington Examiner, not a friend of Donald Trump, that's for sure. Byron York is not a friend of Donald Trump. That's the truth. The Obama administration set a record for rejecting Freedom of Information Act requests, according to the Washington Examiner report. Administration censored materials or rejected requests for access in a record 596,000 cases, 77% of the time, according to the annual report conducted. That's an increase of 12% since Obama first took office in 2008. The figure, I'm going to read this list. The figure includes 250,000 instances in which officials said they couldn't find the records. An individual refused to pay for the copies. The government denied the request as unreasonable or improper. When those are excluded, and the administration says 93% of the FOA requests are at least partially fulfilled, that's unbelievable. The review covered 100 agencies in 2015. It's amazing. Our transparent government. Oh, here's an interesting one. Ted Cruz. Push for doubling of immigrants raised again. This is according to the Washington Examiner, not a friend of Donald Trump. Byron York, senior editor, he's not enamored with Trump. Plans pushed by GOP presidential candidate Cruz under the immigration reform debate in 2013 would have jumped the number of immigrants, including those from Muslim nations, enormously. Under the plan, the yearly legal immigration would have gone from 740,000 to 1.6 million. He said his idea was actually to help kill the bill, not to boost the numbers. What a fraud this guy is. God. Oh my God, this guy's so bad. I was introducing a whole series of amendments, according to Cruz, in part to demonstrate the hypocrisy of the Democrats. So, for example, the Democrats claimed they were supporting high-tech workers. So I introduced an amendment on that. Every Democrat voted against it, which demonstrated that this was a political endeavor for them. That what they were saying wasn't true, he told Laura Ingraham. What a fraud this guy is. The administration, and it's come out in 2013 and in 2014, and it's on Cruz's website, that he welcomes the Syrian refugees, and on Fox News he said it, and Peter Balcott asked him, are you concerned about the vetting? He goes, we can do it, we got no problem. And then in November of 2015, the Paris attacks, and he changed his entire position. So he's a political opportunist. But what I found really interesting about the whole thing was that, and this is the reason why I am for the natural-born citizen clause, born here to two citizen parents, as opposed to Rubio, who's a birthright citizen, born to America with two foreign nationals, and Cruz, born in Canada to foreign, whatever that is. The reason being, Cruz, in his explanation of this whole thing, referenced his father. He's saying, my father was a refugee from Cuba. Well, who cares? In all due respect, not to be disrespectful, I have no problem with immigrants and people. My family came from Italy, but who cares about Cuba? John McCain was born on the Panama Canal, Panama military base in Panama. They had a Senate resolution, they had a hearing, Senate Resolution 511 to make him, to supposedly make him, they came out with a resolution, 511, to make him eligible. Both his parents were born in America. His father was a 4-star admiral. His grandfather was a 4-star admiral. He was a captain in the Navy. I see his lineage. He's connected to the land. Now, I'm not down with McCain's politics, but he's connected to the land. I know who this guy is. I got Cruz, you trying to sell me Cruz. Cruz is talking about a refugee. His father was a refugee from Cuba. Who are you? His father was in Cuba, and the New York Times reported that he was in Cuba fighting alongside Castro. He got out, he bribed his way out, got into America, went to Texas, raised these big checks, came back to Castro, gave Castro the checks, came back to Texas, to the people where he got the money from, and he apologized to them, saying he didn't know Castro was a commie. You believe that? Then it came out that Cruz's aunt, his father's sister, was fighting the counter-revolution on Batista's side. Who are these people? And then the question that nobody wants to ask Cruz, the Canadian, why did his father flee to Canada? Don't you want to know this stuff? We're putting the guy in the you want to put this guy in the White House? That's why you got to go with Donald Trump. People sending me videos. Trump said 20 years ago he gives money to the Democrats, he gives money to the Republicans, he does all this crazy. I said he was a businessman, and Trump owns up to it. He doesn't deny it. That's why I love Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, you know him. You know where he stands. You know who the guy is. I love Donald Trump. You believe this? Rubio's born. Listen to this one. Rubio's born here. 2 foreign nationals. I said this on the show a couple of weeks ago. His parents were here before Castro took over. When Castro took over, it's documented at least 4 times. His mother's going back and forth to Cuba. Are you kidding me? Who are you? Right? And then I find out Anwar al-Awlaki. Anwar al-Awlaki is a birthright citizen born in America to 2 foreign nationals. He's helping Major Hassan from Fort Hood to whack 13 Americans. He's helping the shoe Unabomber. Thank God he got stopped. And then he goes out to Yemen and he's doing international global jihad with Facebook. This guy is educated in America. I think he may even got a PhD here. He could run for president based on these 2 guys. But he got whacked by a drone in 2011. Crazy. Unbelievable. Oh yeah, Bill Clinton's knocking Obama. What does that mean? Does that mean Hillary's got problems legally? Maybe. Chelsea's even attacking Obama's Obamacare. But that's an easy one. They're saying 6 to 7 of these Medicaid exchanges are going bankrupt under Obamacare. And then we got here. Listen to this one. Brussels bomb. This. I got this post from Kenneth Timmerman, the author of Dark Forces: The Truth About Benghazi. Brussels bombers plan nuclear explosion. The video reveals suicide bomber brothers from Brussels massacre spied on Belgian nuclear chief, evidently in advance of nuclear strike. The 2 terrorist brothers who conducted joint suicide bombings on Brussels this Tuesday apparently planned to bomb a Belgian nuclear plant and cause a nuclear explosion. This is from Kenneth Tillman. Amazing stuff, right? There's another one from Tillman. ISIS oil in Turkey. What? An RT documentary. I think RT is a German television, a German media documentary crew filming in northern Syria has seen Islamic State ISIS documents abandoned by retreating terrorists and found by the Kurds that along with captured ISIS recruits provided stunning insight into ISIS oil trade. Shortly after the outbreak of the Syrian war, ISIS became a game changer in Iraq, in particular Syria. Beheadings on camera, mass killings, enslavement, as well as apparent connections to the Paris and Brussels attacks have become synonymous with the terror group. Running a viable military organization with such remarkable capabilities, unfortunately, would be impossible without some logistical and financial support from the outside. Turkey, which had been actively engaged in Syrian wars since the outset, has repeatedly denied claims that it's aiding ISIS. However, while Ankara insists that it is the jihadist group's sworn enemy, facts on the ground often tell a different story, that Turkey is involved. The German media outlet RT has spoken to several witnesses who were involved in ISIS's trade activities and assessed the terror group's documents, which provide insight into how and where foreign militants enter Syria to join the Islamic State. Crazy. Here's the picture right here. Now, this article by the Washington Times is beginning to confirm what Kenneth Tillerman found in his research over in the Middle East about Benghazi, that the cover-up is not the videos, never was the videos, never was the video, the Muhammad video, never was the video from Ayman al-Zawahiri, the Al-Qaeda leader. Instead, it was the involvement of Iran. And my computer's slowing down a little bit so I can get down to the article. It's a Washington Times article, The Iranian Connection. Questions about Iran's involvement in the Benghazi attacks persist. My computer's running slow right now. So while it's doing that, I'm going to download this.
It's 20 past.
All right, so we're going to close it out. I just want to read this article quickly. If I can move it. Continue to page 1. Come on. In the aftermath of the 2012 Benghazi attack that killed 4 Americans, Defense Intelligence Agency Director Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, this guy's awesome, tasked the intelligence community for information on Iran's involvement in the attack. Until now, government officials have refused to acknowledge any Iranian involvement in Benghazi. But Flynn's memo indicates that at least some in the U.S. intelligence community suspected Tehran from the very beginning. Crazy. I got this problem with the computer. Okay. Now retired, Flynn told the Washington Times for clarification reasons he couldn't discuss the memo's redacted contents or talk about his 4 hours of secret testimony before the Benghazi committee. He did note, however, that a recent declassified trove of letters from Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden revealed that the Shiite Iran was willing to help Sunni militants if the common foe was the United States. And we, through the model, we just obliterate all that Sunni-Shia divide anyway. The U.S. military has crossed swords with Iran's Quds force in Iraq, Syria, Libya, and Yemen, where Quds force used a similar tactic to what sources believe they used in Benghazi, infiltrating a paramilitary operations team in a hostile environment under a cover of humanitarian aid workers for the Red Crescent Society, the Muslim equivalent of the Red Cross. They did it. There was a kidnapping. It's crazy. This is crazy stuff. This is like unbelievable. This is the Frankie Russo pre-show. We're getting ready. We got to get out of here because we're getting ready for the live show. Yeah. Don't forget, America's team. We got to help the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, help them fight post-traumatic stress disorder. Frankie Russo show. Yeah. Pre-show. See you in about 40 minutes. Yeah.